Where are you right? Is that your workshop? Where are you?
Yeah, it's my garage studio in Lethbridge. Yeah.
What do we do? What are you mostly doing out there when you're working out there?
About 2/3 of the time I'm working on music, and the other third of the time I'm fixing shit.
What is your favorite thing to fix? Like, what do you love to tinker with?
Well, a lot of it's working on guitars, right? And amps, like getting them dialed in how you want them, and just maintenance. You know, after you do it, play guitar enough years, you just figure out how to do it yourself. I got all the books.
That's cool. So you've taught yourself how to do those things then?
A lot of them. It's not that hard. I mean, it's not rock. Some of the stuff's hard, but I mean, a lot of the routine maintenance stuff, it's easier just to do it yourself than take it into the shop. It's kind of the farm kid way, you know?
Well, that's the thing. Being a farm kid, is that what you kind of grew up doing? When there was something broken, you just learned how to fix it?
Yeah. I mean, you know, to a point, yeah. Until you wreck something, then you take it in.
Now okay, that's perfect. What do you remember trying to fix and you actually ended up screwing it up more?
Well, I remember actually as a really small child being obsessed with click pens.
Yep.
You know, when I was just a little kid, and I'd take them apart and try and put them back together, and I wrecked a bunch of those. So that was the beginning of a long journey. I think I screwed up.
That was my thing when I was bored in school. I would always take my pen apart and try and put it back together. Like I was a CIA agent doing it with my gun, but it was a little pen in school, right?
Yeah. I was really into that kind of thing. I think I ruined a few lawnmowers, and you know, but I got a pretty good. I'm pretty organized these days.
Is that one thing that you've been taught, or did you teach yourself along the way that it's better to be super organized? Because my grandpa's shop was always the same way. Immaculately, like I could eat off his floor in his workshop. It was so immaculately clean.
No, I figured that out on my own. My dad's shop was always a kind of a gong show. I mean, he wasn't really he wasn't even actually as into this kind of thing as I. He was a veterinarian, and he is handy enough, but he wasn't really. His tools are all over the place.
Did you get to go to him with work, being a veterinarian? Did you learn a lot of things about animals just going into work with Dad?
Yeah, when you're a kid, you get pressed into service as a vet assistant pretty early. I saw a lot of gory shit.
What kind of stuff did you see going into work with Dad?
Oh, C-sections and castrations, and you know, pulling calves and floating teeth and spaying dogs and whatever, all of it.
What's floating teeth?
It's like dentistry for horses.
Oh, jeez. I couldn't handle that stuff. I'm far too much of a city kid to handle any of that stuff. Now, I know you've been watching this. How much true to life is Yellowstone? How much do you love it?
Well, there's a lot more killing than I'm familiar with, but but it's actually, someone did a really good in terms of the setting, you know, like, and the language and the way those guys dress and how they talk to each other. Somebody did a really good job on that accuracy, because those guys could totally be modern ranch hand type guys. I know guys like that, you know, without the murder.
Well, that was my thing. Do you notice people in the show and you're like, oh, I know somebody just like that. I know somebody just like that.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, like, you know, it's the same as, I'm sure, you know, when you watch WKRP, you're like, that's not how radio really works, you know? Or if you're a musician, you see a show about a band, you're like, that's not how that works. And there's a ton of that in the Western world. Like, people make cowboy movies and we're like, that's not how that works. But, you know, on good movies, people get a consultant, you know, whether it's your world or my world or whatever. If it's, you know, oil riggers, whatever the topic is, they make sure that they get their shit correct, right? And someone on Yellowstone is definitely consulted, because, or maybe Costner just knows that stuff himself, but the way the lingo, they got it pretty correct.
You know, for me, it's not even radio stuff, but did you ever see the movie Waiting? It was about the service industry. It had Ryan Reynolds in it.
No, but I've heard of it.
I was a server and a bartender for years, and immediately while watching that show, it was the same as you. I was like, the lingo is perfect. The people, I knew every single type of character that they cast. I was like, I know somebody like you. I know somebody like you. That to me was a show. And yeah, they blow it out of proportion. But in a way, you're like, that's exactly the environment. If you've ever worked in restaurants or bars, that's it.
Well, it's cool when, I mean, I don't know if it matters because, 95% of people aren't familiar with whatever fill in the blank scenario, but it's nice when it actually rings true, right? I thought that Rounders card playing movie was like that. Like the plot
So
was
good.
the plot was ridiculous and the characters are over the top, but they got there's so many ridiculous poker movies out there in the old days. Like it's not reality, but that show is pretty close.
I've been waiting on them to make a Rounders 2 for forever because I think they could do it justice making a second one if they brought back the old crew. You bring back Ed Norton, you bring back Matt Damon, you bring back the Kanish, right? If you could, there's a way to do that and make it a decent quality, follow up, right?
Yeah, you could. Maybe it'd have to be online.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Now we're doing this thing since we're talking about movies and TV shows, sort of a March Madness style bracket of what we're calling the greatest show of all time. We have 32 shows that we started with. Our listeners vote every day. But what is your mind, Corb Lund? What is the greatest show ever made?
You mean TV show or movie? What do you mean?
Yeah, TV show.
Like a series?
Yep.
Oh God, like no parameters, like comedy, drama, nothing?
No parameters, totally open.
The Wire.
Good call. Very good call. And sadly, because we let the Country 105 listeners vote on which shows should make the final 32, didn't make the cut. But I agree with you. I remember. Yeah, I know.
Oh, that's silly. The Wire is possibly the best thing ever committed to film.
Why do you say that?
Oh, it's just there's so many memorable characters, and again, the writing is good. The guy that I've read interviews and listened to interviews with the guy, his name is David something, but he was a Baltimore court reporter for years. He worked the crime beat, so he knows his shit, right? And that's what makes it so good. But yeah, the Wire is MASH is pretty damn good too.
MASH is on there. MASH did make the list because that's an all-timer that changed sort of TV for the next 30 years. When MASH comes in, it sort of blows everything out, and people just take little bits and pieces from MASH to do their own thing down the. People still learn from MASH to this day, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be a stretch to say this is one of the best shows ever, but a personal favorite as a kid was Magnum.
Magnum Pi. Now, why did you like that one as a kid?
I don't know. I just thought that when I was a kid, I thought like Thomas Magnum was the perfect dude. Like that's it. Everybody. Why wouldn't you want to be that guy?
Did you ever have a sweet mustache? Did you ever grow one just so you could be a little Magnum?
Yeah. I want to be half Magnum, half Glenn Fry from the Eagles.
We were watching.
I don't know if you remember what his look was like, but yeah, like hair down to shoulder length hair, parted in the middle, like Hawaii 81 t-shirt, and like a big stash, and bunch of cocaine.
We got to go see them a couple of years ago. Glenn had passed, but his son was actually filling in and part of the band now, and it was really, really cool, man. It was a very cool concert, and to watch his kid sort of step in for him, I was like, dang, that's really, really cool. Yeah,
the Eagles are one of my favorite bands.
Is that something that you were influenced by growing up? You listen to the Eagles and you're like, that makes me want to make music, or it influenced the sound early on in your career?
Yeah, the Eagles were the first band that I got into outside of my parents' record collection, because we're all subject to our parents' tastes till high school, or maybe not high school, like junior high or whatever. You pick something, and my buddies at school, buddy named Bob Young, introduced me to the Eagles, and it changed my life.
So we have this segment that we do on this YouTube channel, Corb, called My First Time on the Radio. Do you remember where you were, what you were listening to when you first heard one of your tunes on the radio?
Oh, I think so. I think it was a song called Shine Up My Boots, and CKUA was playing it, the local public radio. I think that was a long time ago. Oh, actually, no, that's not true, because I was in a metal band called The Smalls before that, and we got radio play too. So that would have, the first time I heard one of my country songs would have been what I just said. It would have been earlier.
And so,
I think.
Were you driving? Were you working? What was going on?
I think I was driving, actually. Yeah, I was driving around town doing picking up something at Home Depot or something, trying to fix the van.
And did you have a freak out moment, or were you like, that's kind of cool, and you just go into Home Depot and get what you needed?
No, it was a big deal. No, I was stoked. It's like,
yeah, because that's one of those moments in life that you've been working towards, and then you hear yourself, and it's kind of an I've made it moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of those moments, but that's for sure one of them.
What's another one that stands out to you as an I've made it moment?
A few years ago, I was in Las Vegas for the National Finals Rodeo. That's where they have the annual finals every year. And there's a guy named Bob Tallman who's a really famous rodeo announcer, and he's got a really distinctive voice. I think he's Texan or Oklahoman or something. He's got a deep Southern thing going on. And I'd never met him before, and he came up to me. I was singing the anthem at one of the rodeos there, and I was hanging around watching after it, and he came up to me, and Ollie came up to me and just said, "Everything's better with some cows around." So for him, it'd be like having Ron McLean come up to you and quote something. That guy's a huge deal in rodeo world. So yeah, and
That's so cool.
Quoted one of my tunes to me. That was a moment.
Speaking of tunes, where did the inspiration for Horse Pour come from? How did that all come together?
My partner on that, Jada Dreyer, we wrote it together, but it was her idea because she shows horses professionally, so it's very true to life for her. So she thought of the idea, and she told me that I guess it's a kind of a compliment. She said I was the only person who could possibly help her finish that song. So we got drunk and finished it, and then I actually added the wedding vows part to it, and then we recorded it together, and we've been singing it together live for years, and we just put it out recently, so it's kind of had its own cult following, especially in horse show world or Western, in horse world, because that's a common thing. Like being horse poor just means having no money and way too many ponies, right?
I've known people in my life, even with just one horse, and every dollar that they make extra goes towards that horse, whether it's showing or jumping or some new saddle or whatever it is. That's where your money goes, right?
Vet bills are a big one.
1,000,000%. Well, you got the floating teeth you were talking about, right?
Floating the teeth, yeah. No,
so
yeah.
What made you guys want to put it out now? Why now?
Well, we recorded it along with a bunch of other tracks for our record Agricultural Tragic last year, or a year and a half ago, I guess. And when we were really it was about 4 years since we made a record, so we were really excited. And I wrote way more stuff than I usually do, so we recorded more than we needed. And we had intended to put Horse Pour on the record all along because it kind of already had its own cult following, like I said. But we recorded a different song that I wrote, which is also an old school country duet called I Think You Ought to Try Whiskey / I Think You Ought to Try Gin. And I cut that with Jada because I just needed a placeholder because she was in the studio doing the other one. And I needed a female voice so that I could pitch it around to people, but she nailed it. So we just thought, shoot, we'll just use her version. So we put that on the record, and we thought it was too much to have two duets on one record, and we had too many songs anyway. So we thought, oh, well, we'll wait and release it. Little did we know we'd release it because we needed material in the middle of a global plague, but it worked out pretty well.
You didn't see this coming?
Didn't see it coming.
Let me ask you this. So Jada talks about being horse poor. What in your life does most of your extra money go towards? Is there a hobby, or is there something that, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So you're guitar poor.
Yeah. Yeah, I should have fewer guitars and be able to play them better, actually.
How many guitars do you have? Do you figure?
I don't know, 30. That includes some mandolins and some basses and stuff. But I mean, and then when you do it for a living, it's like tools, right? Like I got one I keep at our ranch, and I got one I keep at my mom's house, and I got one I keep in the van. So it's it's hammer and saw after a while.
Being such a guitar guy, do you remember the first one you ever got that was actually yours?
Yep. It was a piece of crap Flying V from Sears. You know what Flying V is?
No.
It's like the ones those crazy heavy metal guitars that are shaped like a V.
Those were cool.
Yeah, but mine was a piece of crap. It was a Harmony, and they sold them out of Sears. And I actually, me and my friend got drunk and burned it one night but I found an exact copy on eBay for $100, so I bought it. So I have an exact copy of it.
So did you buy it yourself, or was it a gift for a birthday? Or
no, I bought it myself.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's and you were probably working really hard, and that was one of the first things you wanted to buy, right?
Yeah, and when you're playing electric guitar, then you have to convince your parents that you need an amp as well, and they're like, "Why do you need an amp?" They don't understand what amps are, right? And so it's just a struggle. And then I bought one, and that one was barely playable. And then I bought one. It's a student model, but it's pretty decent. They're called Aria. Like a lot of student guitar players play them. They're cheap, but they're decent. And that was okay for a few years. And then this is my first real guitar. And it's a thoroughbred. This is a 1981 Gibson Les Paul Standard Tobacco Sunburst.
That's beautiful.
Like Ace Frehley's from Kiss. But this guy is a serious piece. I still have.
Is that the one when you just want to noodle around and just play? That's the one you pick up first.
Not so much, because these aren't really suited. That Les Pauls aren't ideal for country music. They're more for heavy stuff or rock. Right. So when I want to freak out, in the middle of the night I crank this guy up.
That's your stress reliever?
Yeah. It's the ideal.
So cool. Reliever. Now let me ask you this, because you're doing a Country 105 Instagram takeover. Are you going to give us like a guitar tour? Do you know what you're going to do yet? Does that feel like a lot of pressure to take over our Instagram for a full day and like a day in the life of Corb Lund?
No, not really. Should it?
No, I would be for me, because I feel like I'm boring, so I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I figure I'll just, day in my weird life, right? It's like 1/3 guitars and 1/3, fixing stuff, and 1/3 drinking beer, I guess.
Can I join you for the drinking beer portion? I can't fix stuff and I can't do guitars, but I can drink pretty good.
I can introduce everybody to my bulldog puppy. She's pretty cute.
Did you just get her?
A few months ago, Billy the bulldog.
Oh, is that sort of a pandemic related thing? You just needed a pet, or what?
My girlfriend's been I was gonna say been hounding me, which is funny, but she's been trying to talk me into a dog into a bulldog for years, and I finally was like, all right, we'll try it. If it's a pain in the ass, then we're getting rid of it. But turns out I love her even more than she does. So
that's always the way it works out. Whoever has to be talked into the dog ends up loving the dog more.
Yeah, she doesn't bark, and she doesn't jump up on stuff, and she doesn't crap in the house. She doesn't chew on stuff. She's pretty good. I was just afraid of I just don't like dogs that are super loud and ruin disturb the peace constantly, but she just sleeps, so it's cool.
So we get guitars, we get drinking, we get fixing stuff, and we get an adorable little bulldog when you take over?
Yeah, maybe a bonfire if you're lucky.
That sounds perfect. I can't wait to see it, man. And we're going to spin the new track when we're able to. Next week when you're taking over, we'll spin the new track. And I just can't thank you enough for your time. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, Corb. Thank you.
Saying I wasn't intimidated by it doesn't mean I'm not looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun.
I can't wait to see it, man. We will catch up with you next week. Thanks for your time.
If it's nice enough, I'll get the bike out.
Hey, go for a rip on the bike with you.
Yeah, that's an old BMW. It's one of those. It's called the Paris Dakar model. It's one of those adventure desert race bikes.
Okay, I'm into that. I'm watching the whole day then.
Yeah, you
got way too many interesting things going on.
I got an air compressor. I got all kinds of shit. We'll have a great.
All right, man. Well, we will catch up with you next week, and thanks for your time today. I appreciate it.
You bet. See you, man.
See you, Corb.